الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. Surah Tawba is one of those surahs that has many different kinds of lessons, different kinds of commandments. But one of the special features of this surah is that it talks about different kinds of people. It talks about people in light of their true nature and true tendencies. And it does not hold back in calling people and telling people as they are, the good and the bad. And there's a great deal of emphasis on those people that are always in this situation of trying to please everyone and trying to look out for their own interests and trying to make sure that everything is okay from all sides, and that they shouldn't have to give any sacrifice. They shouldn't have to give up anything. All their needs should be fulfilled, their interests should be secured, but they shouldn't have to give up anything for that. Whereas the believers are described as those people who do whatever they are required to do to also ensure that their interests are secured, their needs are fulfilled, but there is a greater purpose behind all of that. They are not entirely self-centered. In fact, their life revolves around and is centered around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His commandments. And so from time to time, occasions arise where these people are drawn out. And they kind of draw attention to themselves by noticeably avoiding all those circumstances where sacrifice is required. So this is one common feature and one common trait in these people, that wherever there is a call for sacrifice or perhaps a little bit of risk, these people will be absent. And one of the occasions when that happened was the Battle of Tabuk. Another one of the occasions where that happened was the Umrah of Hudaybiyah, which ended up becoming a treaty. And almost every occasion where there was some element of risk, some element of sacrifice, they would be absent, and then they would come back and say, oh, I didn't do it because of this and this and this and this. In fact, some people even tried to give excuses of a religious nature, as we just heard. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَقُولُ أُذَلِّي وَلَا تَفْتِنِّي. One of them came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, allow me to stay back and don't put me into a trial. Allow me to stay back from the Battle of Tabuk and don't put me in a situation of a test that I won't pass. What was the test that he was talking about? That my desires are very strong, and when I go out, Tabuk was a confrontation with the Romans. He said, I am someone who has a very strong tendency towards women, and if I see the Roman women, I will be put into fitna. So please don't send me there, allow me to stay back. In other words, to protect my own iman, I need to stay in Medina. He was giving a religious excuse. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? أَلَا فِي الْفِتْنَةِ سَقَطُوا. It was in fitna that they fell, that they landed. What happened with this person who was giving these excuses? This person ended up walking away from Islam altogether. And from this, the lesson that is drawn out is that whatever we use as a reason for staying back from a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that same thing will become a punishment for us. If it's someone's wealth, then their wealth will become a source of trouble for them. If it's someone's family, then their family will become a source of trouble for them. If whatever it is that becomes an obstacle, that becomes the reason for us to disobey the command of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that same thing becomes the means of our downfall. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us and protect us. So this surah needs to be studied in a great deal of detail because it talks about different kinds of people. And it talks about good people as well. It talks about, as we will read shortly, in tomorrow's Taraweeh, those that went ahead of everyone in their sacrifice. As-sabiqun al-awwalun. Those who were at the forefront always. Min al-muhajirin, whether it was from those people that had come from Makkah, wal ansar, and those who were assisting those that had come from Makkah. And وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُمْ بِإِحْسَانٍ. After that there will be other people as well that will follow in their footsteps. رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. Allah is pleased with them, they are pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are some people that are they don't meet the highest standard of believers, but they're not exactly disbelievers, and they're not hypocrites either. Ahnaf ibn Qais, rahimahullah, was a tabi'i by definition. He is from that category of people that are called the mukhadram. Mukhadram are those people who were alive at the time of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but did not get to see him, did not get to meet him. So Ahnaf has a very interesting story. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent people to his tribe to invite them towards Islam. And during this process, the people of his tribe basically rejected that message. They said, we're not interested. Ahnaf was a young boy at that time. So he went up to them and he said, I think that what you're saying makes sense and I think it's the truth. And he started rallying his people, saying, look, these people are inviting towards good, they're inviting towards decency, they're inviting towards things that we also uphold to be honorable things. So you should all accept this message. And he was a very young boy at that time. But he urged and motivated and gave this pep talk to his people. And as a result of that, they said, okay, you know what, maybe what the boy is saying is true, so we will accept this message. Now the companions that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had sent came back and reported this to him, that this is what happened with these people. And there was a small boy by the name of Ahnaf. He was the one who turned everything around. The boy himself was so small that he could not at that time migrate to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the Prophet ﷺ heard of him and he made a lot of dua for him. Allahumma ighfir lil Ahnaf. He made dua for this young boy. Allah grant him maghfirah. So Ahnaf ibn Qais had a very high position even amongst the Sahaba, because they knew that Nabi ﷺ has made a special dua for him. And he used to say that I have more hope from that dua than I have from any of my deeds. Long story about Ahnaf ibn Qais. Very ajib, amazing personality. Amazing personality. People used to send their children to him to learn certain qualities of his. So at that time, people used to send their children to people for the sake of acquiring sifat. Just like today we send to institutions to acquire certain standards of education, they would send their children to obtain certain standards of qualities. One of the qualities that Ahnaf was known for was his tolerance, his forbearance, his calm, his sense of calm, his sense of hilm. And he was so well known for this that people used to stay in his company to learn how is he so calm and tolerant and able to absorb everything and withstand, doesn't lose his temper. So he was one of those people. Physically, he was very unattractive. In fact, historians write, مَا مِنْ عَيْبٍ إِلَّا وَلَهُ مِنْهُ نَصِيبٍ. Any physical flaw that you can think of, Ahnaf had it. In fact, Ahnaf wasn't even his real name. Ahnaf is, in fact, it's a description of somebody who's bow-legged. Somebody whose legs are bent in like that. Somebody who's bow-legged, that's what Ahnaf actually means. So he was bow-legged, his feet were crooked, his legs were crooked, his body was disproportionate. Even his eyes, nose, mouth was disproportionate. His face was all crooked. His nose was crooked. His ears were out of place. He was completely disproportionate. But this man had so much ru'b, and he had so much awe, that even the great Sahaba, even when Muawiyah radiallahu anhu became the leader of the Muslim world, he also had a great deal of awe and respect and honor for Ahnaf, even though he was not a Sahabi. So anyways, Ahnaf ibn Qais heard someone reciting a verse of the Quran, لَقَدْ أَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ كِتَابًا فِيهِ ذِكْرُكُمْ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. We have revealed to you a book in which you are mentioned. Don't you use your senses? Don't you understand? When he heard this, he said, Allah is telling me that this is a book in which I am mentioned. فِيهِ ذِكْرُكُمْ. There is mention of me somewhere in this book. I need to know, how is Allah mentioning me? How is Allah describing me? Am I one of the people that Allah is pleased with or displeased with? So he started going through the Quran, page after page, verse after verse, and he came across many different descriptions. He came across the descriptions of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. كَانُوا قَلِيلًا مِنَ اللَّيْلِ مَا يَهْجَعُونَ وَبِالْأَسْحَارِ هُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. These people hardly ever slept at night, and even then, in the early mornings before Fajr, they would get up and make istighfar, cry in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this was their habit. He said, no, I'm not quite there yet. He read other descriptions of believers. He says, no, I'm not quite there yet. Then he read descriptions of those who rejected the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا إِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ وَيَقُولُونَ أَإِنَّا لَتَارِكُوا آلِهَتِنَا لِشَاعِرٍ مَجْنُونَ. When La ilaha illallah would be said, they would act arrogantly and they would insult the Prophet ﷺ. He said, no, al-iyadhu billah, I'm not from those people either. I believe in Rasulullah ﷺ. Then there were descriptions of hypocrites. He read them, he said, no, I'm not from those. He kept going through the Quran until he came across this verse, which is in Surah Tawba, which is what brought up this discussion. وَآخَرُونَ اعْتَرَفُوا بِذُنُوبِهِمْ خَلَطُوا عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَآخَرَ سَيِّئًا عَسَى اللَّهُ أَن يَتُوبَ عَلَيْهِمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. There is another category, as Allah is enumerating the categories of people, believers, disbelievers, people in between. He said there is another group of believers, and these are such who confess and admit their mistakes. They admit their weaknesses. They don't ignore them. They don't act arrogantly towards them. They don't pretend that they are perfect in front of Allah and there's no room for improvement. They actually admit their faults and their weaknesses. And their account looks like this. خَلَطُوا عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَآخَرَ سَيِّئًا. There are some good deeds in there, but they've made some mistakes as well. He says, there I am. That's me. What does Allah say? عَسَى اللَّهُ يَتُوبَ عَلَيْهِمْ. It is hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive them. So he says, I found a description of myself. Allah says that He will accept tawbah, so now I need to start doing tawbah and istighfar for my mistakes and for my sins. So this is one of those surahs where that talks about people. And really, if we were to approach the Quran with no other intention but to find our own description, how is Allah describing me? We will find Allah describes attitudes, He describes beliefs and levels of belief, He describes character and kinds of character, good qualities, bad qualities. This book it's a book about people for people. It is hudal linnas after all. It is a guidance for mankind, for people. So if we were to go through it and learn commandments, for example, which are important, we should learn the commandments, but we don't realistically assess ourselves against what the Quran is saying, then we would be making a big mistake in our lives. So Surah Tawba is one of those surahs. In fact, every surah is a surah that when we read it, we should reflect on how am I fitting into what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. Allah is speaking to us. Is He speaking about me and my deeds in a way that He is pleased, or is He displeased with something that I'm doing? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to reflect on these verses. These are blessed nights. These are nights to make amends with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are nights to make up for lost time, lost opportunities, and these are nights in which our entire lives can change. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those people that use this occasion to our advantage. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala